Hey guys, we're back with this again. Today, DSP decided to go off on, I guess, an IGN reviewer for liking Diablo 4, which I get, they're entitled to do that. They are entitled to do that, and I've read the review that he is referring to, and I would like to point out a few things that he got wrong, and that he basically is trying to spin in order to make himself appear right in this regard. We can get into it, hopefully a little bit shorter than yesterday's video, but still, there's a little bit to unpack here at least. And it just shows, again, he has to be right about everything all the time, and he also in this case is trying to, I guess, appeal to popularity or appeal to the masses when really they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit about his opinion about things, and they most certainly really don't give a shit about the IGN review. Reviews really don't have that much of an influence on whether or not a game is successful or not in terms of sales. That's one thing that he kind of doesn't understand, but that's also like kind of something that a lot of people understand. But anyway, let's just get into it so we can talk about it a little bit.
Okay, so I just want to review what I just read. Okay. It's a retread that plays much like classic Diablo, doesn't innovate that much, although it has some modern innovations for the last decade, not that many. Feels like you're kind of going home to a classic that you've already played, but it still feels good. The story is only good 40% of the time, because the entire middle chunk of the game is completely superfluous and a waste of your time. Full of bugs and polished glitches and things that need to be fixed. Game doesn't really get good until you beat the story. And even then, the post-game content just feels like a lead-up to a good DLC, and you're hoping the DLC is good. By the way, the review score, 9 out of 10.
Okay, so first off, everything that he is talking about were basically, in the same review that I have read, were nitpicks. Like, they were just very, very small criticisms to the overall package. They were not glaring flaws as he's making them out to be. The one in particular that I would like to point out is the idea that there are hundreds of bugs, or like as far as a glaring flaw. Like, yeah, it's a game that was given to journalists pre-release. Obviously, there's going to be a day one patch. The reviewer even says there is going to be a day one patch inevitably for some of the things that he had pointed out. And in addition to that, the bugs that he had mentioned and points out in the review itself are hyper specific. They are not like things that you will encounter all the time. The one that he mentions out that can be easily replicated was one that was very, very specific to a particular class, the sorcerer class. Other than that, there really isn't much that the reviewer complained about, or at least he didn't complain about it to the same extent that DSP is complaining about it here. DSP basically took like maybe a couple of lukewarm statements in the entire glowing review, by the way. Like, this review was actually, the dude loved the game. But he took a few of those statements and basically made it look like the game was a lot worse than it actually is, so that he can, I guess, pretend to be right about, like, oh, how games journalists are disingenuous about the numerical review scores, which, by the way, nobody really cares about the numerical review score. At least the people who are actually looking at a review to, like, purchase a game, who are trying to make an informed purchase decision, they will ignore the review score and they will actually read the content of the review. And this is a pretty lengthy one. It's also very thorough. It's about 15 minutes in video, and I don't know how many thousands of words count on IGN's website. That's what they will pay attention to. They don't pay attention to the number. The number is just a meme at this point. We all know about the 7 out of 10 too much water in the review for Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which is just hilarious, but the person who was making the review did offer a somewhat invalid criticism that there wasn't much geographical diversity. You surfing a lot around the islands, but the islands themselves are diverse. Either way, that's like what most people like just kind of make a joke on, is the bullet points of the review and the numerical score. Nobody actually takes the numerical score seriously, yet he does, or he thinks that people do, because he believes that people are incredibly stupid.
I wish I was making it up. This is what I mean about modern game reviews. This is what infuriates me about modern game reviews, okay? How do you sit down and say, I have a laundry list of criticisms for this game of the ways that it could be better? Oh, by the way, 9 out of 10. Seriously, it's fucking bullshit, and I hate this shit. I hate it because people will not read the review. People, sadly, they only look at the number, right? So what they're going to do is they're going to look like the number rankings of these games and say, Diablo 4 is a 9 out of 10. Then they're going to play it and say, why is my sorcerer stuck? Why is the game so boring in the middle? Why is the story stupid? Why is it not good until I've already beaten the story, which took like 40, 50 hours? Why am I now only getting to good content?
There is a very high chance, nearly 100%, that most people who are playing the game have not read the review, will not read the review, and if they did read the review, will disagree with the review. For instance, like I said, bugs like that will probably be patched out on day one, provided Blizzard actually releases the patch on day one. We could get another Error 37 case in our hands here. It's very, very much possible. Even aside from that, like, there are people who will like the middle part of the story. And the reviewer himself says that he is a fringe case in caring about the story of Diablo as a whole. Most people who play ARPGs tend to not care about the story all that much. They just want to kill a ton of enemies, get some cool gear, and fight fun bosses. That's all they really want to do. That's how most ARPGs work. And that's what Diablo has been for like 25 years at this point. I'm not sure when the first Diablo came out, but it seems like that long ago that it did. You don't really need a good story for Diablo. And again, the criticisms that this reviewer is leveraging are very, very specific to them, and they point that out in the review. It's not necessarily a common criticism to say like, oh, the story is bad in Diablo. I mean, the story is bad in every Diablo game. It's laughably bad in 3, but still, caring about the story in a Diablo game is like caring about the plot in porn. You just don't. You just don't.
So this is what drives me nuts about modern game reviews. Where is the responsibility? I understand that Diablo is a ginormous game. I understand that it's a flagship title for Blizzard. I understand that people will be playing and talking about it like crazy this month coming up. Does that mean that it just by default should get a high review score? I don't get it. If your entire review is criticism saying the game should be better, here's why. But then you give it a 9 out of 10, you might as well just delete the text out of your review. Really? This is what always drives me nuts about these reviews. They do not scale them properly. How can you give one game a 9 out of 10 and say it's nearly flawless, give another game a 9 out of 10 and say it has tons of flaws? You can't do that.
This is one of the fundamental things he really doesn't understand about reviews. Not every single point of criticism is weighted equally. The bugs that this person experienced and their general experience with the game will be different from somebody else's. There will be certain things that person A will care about when picking up a game like this that person B will not care about. And that will make their experiences and their opinions on the experience differ by a lot. For example, going back to what I said earlier about the story, person A might care a lot about the story for Diablo, in which case they will be disappointed by the fact that the story, according to the reviewer, is a bit of a letdown. Person B, on the other hand, who does not care about the story for Diablo, may enjoy it more. They will disregard whatever plot is happening because they're more enraptured in perfecting the build for their current character, or thinking about the build for their next character, or deciding on what pieces of gear they want to carry over when they decide to replay the same character but with a different set of skills. That's what Diablo really exceeds at. That's what these kind of games really exceed at, is their replayability in that regard. But either way, somebody could just be one and done with the plot, and then they will not like the game as much. It's not the reviewer's responsibility to cater to everybody with that sense of complete objectivity. A sense of complete objectivity in a review is almost impossible. You need to, if the person establishes throughout the review their general opinion of what they're playing, then it is a good review. You get the idea of what they like and what they dislike. And in general, that's how most reviews should work. But with IGN, it's very, very difficult because they have so many people on staff to review things. I'm not going to get into that. That's actually a video that's actually been done before in a video by Donkey about how review scores work and how games reviewers gain credibility or retain credibility. Like, even bad reviewers that you disagree with, are still useful to you. And just reading this one person's review gives me a very, very good idea of what to expect from Diablo 4 and what they enjoyed about it. Like, they were actually really, really good at their job in sort of just conveying their opinion about what they liked about the previous installments of the franchise and what they like about ARPGs in general. It seems very, very clear that this person has played a lot of ARPGs or played enough of them to understand what works and what doesn't in certain regards to why these games are successful or why they would fail. And he doesn't really understand that the criticism that this particular reviewer had are not that important to that particular reviewer, which is why they gave the game a score of 9 out of 10. Like, just because you have 10 bullet points in a game's favor and 5 bullet points against that game does not mean the review is now a 5. That's not how it works. It's not like a math problem that points for, points against. Each point is weighted differently depending on the person's individual experience. Granted, this is also a man who doesn't believe in giving anything a 10 out of 10 because he doesn't believe there's such a thing as perfection in a game, which is technically true, but there are still things that do so well at whatever they're trying to do, they accomplish their goals and exceed them, that they deserve 10s. And he doesn't get that. And I know I'm defending a games journalist right now, which is kind of laughable in itself, but it's more or less just to prove the point that he doesn't really understand how opinions work, or how people can think things differently than what he does, or how certain criticisms don't weigh the same in other people's minds as they might in his. He has to be right, and he has to convince people that he is right in this regard. He can't just accept that, like, nobody really cares about this kind of thing and people might enjoy a thing regardless, even if something has flaws. And he is pretending to care about the populace in this regard, that the people who would review something like this or would read a review to make an informed purchase decision. But most people who would review something like this to make an informed purchase decision are a lot smarter than he is, and they would actually read the review as opposed to just looking at the goddamn number. And even then, the only reason he's complaining about it is so that he has something to complain about. He did not do this when talking about Street Fighter 6. He just completely ignored the same things. He decided to go shit on Diablo 4 because I'm going to guess he kind of doesn't want to play it. He would rather not play it, but it's something that his audience wants to see, so he has to play it.
There is someone at that publication, IGN, that company, they're called the fucking editor. What the editor's job is to do is to read these reviews and to say to the people who wrote them, you have to scale this properly. You can't say 25 negative things about the game and give it a nearly flawless score. It doesn't work that way. There has to be a level of objectivity to your review. Yes, there is subjectivity as well, but just because you had a blast with the game doesn't ignore the 25 flaws you pointed out. It can't be a 9 out of 10. Go back to your fucking desk and rescore the game properly, you irresponsible jackass. And then you kick them on the ass with a giant boot, boom, and you knock them back to their desk and you make them actually do their jobs.
Funny how he always resorts to violence whenever talking about these kinds of things, and why he feels like he knows somebody's job better than the people who are actually doing their jobs, despite the fact that he has not worked a job in several years. Roughly, I think maybe 10 or so. Whenever he got fired from the helicopter company, whatever that is. Either way, yes, it is the editor's job to review whatever the writers have submitted. It is not the editor's job to actually police what they have wrote. That is not their job. That is like horrendous oversight. And there are publications that did that are no longer in business because they did that. There are publications that used to actually change the review score. Like the editor-in-chief would change the review score before publishing a review, and this upset the writer so much that the writers up and left. That's not the job of the editor. The editor's job is to make sure that the thing gets done on time, that there aren't any typographical errors, or to make sure that the article is concise and that it fits within the standards and practices of the publication. It is not their job to actually write write what should be said or write what Phil thinks should be said about a game. That's just over the line for most publications. You just can't do that. but he believes that these scales are somehow objective. He believes that the word of Metacritic is God, and that anything on Metacritic, like, it needs to adhere to a certain point system in order for the scale to be proper. Scales can be whatever the fuck people want them to be. In the case of IGN, I believe it's a 100-point scale. I say that because they use tenths of a point. They use tenths of a point in order to score things, which would then mean their out of 10 score is actually out of 100. But even then, that's the scale they use. They have internal metrics, and I'm going to guess the writer scored the game in accordance to their internal metrics and what they thought was a fair assessment, which was then approved by the editor. Phil believes he knows better than the editor, the writer, and any other staff involved in the process of making this review, or any review. Just because the number doesn't agree with what he thinks it should be. Like, he would probably say, oh, it should be a 7 because they had this many points against the game. Yeah, but those points against the game were slight nitpicks that the writer didn't feel warranted downgrading the score that much to. The game was fine otherwise. And that's the problem. He doesn't get that people can like or dislike things to certain degrees, and they don't have to be the same. People have different opinions, and they don't always have to be like on this like universal scale that he believes exists.
Instead, it seems like these major publications are a bunch of fluff piece idiots. They will literally kiss the butts of these games and have it fucking go way high scores for no reason. Why? Why is everyone pussyfooting around games media and games journalism? Just fucking be responsible and do your jobs. Because then people would say, oh, it's a good game, but it's not great. They should have done a better job. Why are you afraid to say that to Blizzard? What are they gonna do? Cry? Not give you the review copy? Fuck Blizzard. Be honest about the game. Stop kissing butt. I'm tired of this shit. Because then no one can judge fairly what's good and what's not. You can't have a fucking review that has a million criticisms and give it a 9 out of 10. You're a liar. An irresponsible liar.
I find it funny that he's looking at a camera when he's talking about this, because he's honestly just saying this to a mirror. Either way, yes, they can. And to some degree, they kind of have to. Because that is the way that the games media works. That is the way that games journalism works. Publishers can and will blacklist you for whatever reason they deem fit. If you write a hit piece on them, they typically do that. Kotaku, rest in peace Kotaku, they're about to die, has been blacklisted by several publishers for various reasons. IGN, as far as I know, has not been blacklisted yet. And in general, that's because even if they might dislike a game, they tend to be more respectful towards the games that they're given. And that's how most media works, especially in the field of content creation, because you want to be able to have things to create content on. This is why he complains about not getting sponsorships. It's coming to that. He complains about not getting sponsorships because of people saying, like, sending clips or whatever to the people who are given sponsorships that make him look bad when he looks bad on his own. And nobody would want to deal with him. Nobody would want to give somebody a product to review if they're just going to be overly negative about the product without even fair criticism towards it. That's his problem. And it's not anyone else's problem. Like, yes, games journalists have to adhere to certain standards in order to keep getting review guides, but that's just how the business is. And in general, those standards are pretty lenient. You can not like a game, and the games publisher in general will still send you product. Like, you can give a game a really bad review if you don't feel the game deserves a good review, and you can still get a product. You might get a little bit of pressure, but most outlets will understand, and they won't just blacklist you for not liking something that they put out and sent to you. That's just not how it works. There are plenty of independent content creators who will slag off products that they have been sent, and they will still receive more product, even if they don't like the thing that was sent to them. Like, you can be a Nintendo content creator and you can get a game that was not that good, like Paper Mario and the Origami King. Say you don't like it, and Nintendo will still send you The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom years later because you have a good working relationship with them. It doesn't take that much effort to have a good working relationship, and the scores do not dictate that. This person just liked the game, and Phil cannot understand that. He can't understand that, like, their criticisms outweighed, their criticisms were not enough to outweigh the praise of the game.
It's WWE Champions time. I love it. I love it.
Am I saying that Diablo 4 is going to be bad? No.
I just wanted to end it on that shot. That is so transparent what he just did. I just don't get how he can, like, sit there and just slag off reviewers, but at the same time I understand that, like, he doesn't really have an opinion of his own, and he needs to adopt whatever the popular opinion of something is at any given time, unless he feels it's more profitable to pretend to hate something or to actually hate something, in which case he becomes way more transparent about his opinion on certain things. Watching his Zelda playthrough makes that readily apparent, that he just doesn't like the game, and he, like, it definitely is because he doesn't understand that the game encourages creativity and he is the least creative person on earth. But that might be another video for another time. So that is me for tonight, or today, or whatever time it is where you are from. I hope you have a good day, and I will see you all again next time.